Welcome back to the BraveBoldYou channel. Today I wanted to start by, first of all, sharing something that I decided to do, something that I've been curious about exploring for the past almost close to a year, and I decided to just jump in and do it, and it's been about 3 weeks. I'm talking about quitting drinking. So I have been really just questioning this habit that I developed. See, I picked up this habit when the world flipped upside down. This is not something that I did as frequently as I did when we were all stuck in the house and in the house board. I wouldn't necessarily enjoy alcohol because I was really big into like my fitness and my nutrition and just really like those muscle gains. And the world shut down. And this is just something that I found myself doing, like getting in line at the LCBO to go get myself a bottle of wine. And I realized probably about a good year and some ago that I needed to cut back. And so instead of drinking several times a week, it was down to just allowing myself to have about 2 to 3 glasses of wine on a weekend. And for the past, I'm going to say close to a year, I've just been really like questioning this habit that all of a sudden I am holding on to. And so what I've done is I read the book The Naked Mind by Annie Grace, and I highly recommend you to try it, to explore this as a resource if this is something you're interested in as well. But for myself, I read her book. I listened to some of her episodes on her podcast. I would love to have her guest on my podcast on this show. And I just decided, okay, October's rolling around, we're going to do it. So like the last time I had a drink, actually I did have wine in my fridge, was on Sunday, I think it was the 29th of September. I was like, okay, let's just get those 2 glasses of wine and then discard the rest. And I haven't purchased any since, nor have I really felt a huge urge. However, what I have noticed so far in the last 3 and some weeks is at the beginning of the challenge, I did find myself like, on a random Tuesday being like, I just really want to like go to the store and buy a bottle of wine. Or I would get triggered by a sense of stress in my life. And right away, my first thought was, I could really go for a glass of wine. And it really just made me tap into what tools have I been practicing and implementing since I've been on this personal development journey for well over a decade. And it really just made me get really still in these thoughts, and noticing that if I don't give them too much attention, it will, the thought, the craving or the thought will dissipate. However, I didn't really necessarily put myself into situations right off the get-go of being around people who consume alcohol, just because I wanted to really make sure that, first of all, I was anchored and solid in what I was doing. And I had to really sit with why I was doing this. So before I started this on this curious, sober journey, I decided to write myself a letter. I took my phone and I decided to write myself a letter in my notes section on my phone. And essentially what that looked like was really just describing why I wanted to stop this behavior, at least for this month, to really just determine what my relationship to this habit was. And so I just listed out, how it made me feel, getting in line to go purchase, or how it made me feel when I was consuming it, or how it made me feel the morning after. Now, let's just be clear here. I haven't gotten completely wasted in quite some time. I actually have this running joke with my friends where I allow myself to get completely wasted at least once a year, and that just takes me a long time to recover. So it's not something that I was actively a pattern or a habit I was actively engaged in, although I do remember my 20s and my 30s. Okay. So I just decided that when I would consume alcohol, it was really just to be in the moment. And, you gather with friends and family and stuff like this, and it's just nice. And what I really enjoyed doing with my wine is sitting on a Friday night and having a glass or two while I read. That's something that I really, really enjoyed doing. And I am currently as I'm doing this Sober October experiment on myself, I'm just allowing myself to get curious as to what are the thoughts that arise, what am I feeling in my body, and stuff like this. So back to the letter. I wrote a notes on my notes section on my phone, how I felt even the morning after. Sometimes I would wake up with a headache, or I would wake up feeling more groggy and like slower to get to my day. And I didn't particularly enjoy that as somebody who's such a high achiever and has a lot that I'm trying to conquer in my life. That's not a pattern that I really want to be like involved in very much. You know what I'm saying? And so another thing you should know is I don't like labels. So this whole sober curious experiment has just been like, let's just experiment and see what it is. And I'm not sure if it's something that I'm going to be a hardcore set in, because that really goes against my values. However, just being a lot more mindful about the consumption. And so I wrote all these things out to myself in my letter, and I decided that I would jump into Sober October. And at the beginning, I'm going to tell you, my office moved. So there was a lot of high stress there. And then there was traveling and things like that, where I was like, oh, it would be so great to just enjoy a glass. And I had to just catch myself. Now, this past weekend, I got together with some close girlfriends of mine. They live in another town, and I traveled to go see them. And on my way there, as I said, I've been utilizing different tools to just stay in this space in a way where I feel empowered, not in a way where I feel like I'm a victim and this is being pushed upon me, right? And so on my drive up, I was listening to Alcohol, the Experiment by Annie Grace. So it's like a 30-day journaling prompt exercises to really just empower yourself to understand your relationship with alcohol, and whether or not you decide to practice sobriety for the rest of your life, or if it's more like of a moderation, being more sober-ish, which is something that I think that I'll just tap into, is being more sober-ish, mostly sober, but at times probably not. But driving to visit my friends, I was listening to the Alcohol Experiment. And it was really just tapping into how she talks about the power of our words. And this is something that I have spoken on numerous times on my show and in my podcast and with my coaching clients, is the words we speak really matter, especially the words that we say to ourselves. And so getting there, when I showed up at the house, I already knew in my mind, okay, this is something that I am choosing, right? This is not being forced upon me. I'm choosing it. And getting to the house, seeing my friends, and the wine was there. It was my favorite wine. And right away I was asked, do you want a drink? And in my mind, I had a moment of yes. And instead what I said was, yes, I'd take some water. And so right here, number one would be that really tapping into the power of the words. And so I could have said, no, I can't drink, which really just sounds victim-y. And instead I said, yes, I'll take some water. Another thing that I'll add to this is it's really important that if you do this experiment, and if you have done this experiment or you're curious to try this experiment, let me know in the comments below, just so that we can see together how this goes, but we can encourage each other. However, the company you keep really matters. And so I didn't feel like I had to justify why I was doing this. I just explained, I'm just doing an experiment on myself to really just look at this relationship that I've developed, over the last 4 years. Since the world flipped upside down, I picked up this pattern, and I just really want to explore it further to see what is serving about it, right? And so they didn't push me or force me or make me ridicule me or make me feel bad about this decision. So I think that it's super important, the company you keep matters, because you being able to stay solid in your sovereignty is all the more, to stay in your power. And so that was something I noticed. And then throughout the night, I could see myself like looking at the bottle of wine, and then I would just like, oh, just look at it, and then I would redirect my focus to the conversations we were having and the laughter and the jokes and all of the things and the food and just being really in that presence. It really shocked me because I thought I would struggle a little bit more. But as I said, like setting yourself up is key. So for myself, as I was driving up, it was like a prep mode to be like, this is something that I am choosing to do. And so therefore, nobody's forcing me. It's actually kind of like the same mindset that I had to step into when I was doing prepping for my figure bodybuilding shows. Like at the end of prep season, things get a little bit rigid, right? With your training and your nutrition, that you have to really tap into why you're doing this. And so for myself, so far, 3 weeks in, I'm feeling really good. I'm not going to lie, I'm looking forward to completing this experiment. However, just knowing like the effects of what alcohol actually does to your body. And so I would highly recommend reading the book The Naked Mind by Annie Grace, or listening to her 30-day journal prompts of the alcohol experiment. I think that would just really empower you more, because the thing is, when we learn new information, it starts to percolate in your mind. And so sure, you could just dismiss this information, but when you learn new information, for myself, the things start to rewire differently. So this is not to say that, as I said, currently in this moment, I don't feel like I'm going to be hardcore sober my whole life. However, I do feel like I'm going to lean more towards being more sober-ish, which to me is going to look like not drinking every weekend, right? Maybe saving it more for like special occasions, or really just being way more intentional with it. Like I'm very intentional with everything else I do in my life. So I think I need to be a little bit more intentional with this relationship that I also, if I choose to continue having it, this is going to be a priority to me, is being really more intentional with that relationship. I will keep you posted as to what comes next. But so far, I'm 3 weeks-ish in to this sober October journey and feeling great. I have noticed, however, that the thoughts of wanting to consume have diminished greatly. So that's a plus. And we'll just see what happens from there. If you like this video, could you please let me know with the like button, so that I know that you enjoy this content. And if you have experimented something similar like this, maybe it wasn't with alcohol, maybe it was with food or any other habit that you have, let me know in the comments below how that went for you and what you discovered about yourself. And please make sure you're subscribed. So that's going to be like number one. Hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you'll know when I drop new content like this. And as always, be brave, be bold, be you.